Shout out to the CIA. One love to the FBI. Come on in. Old school. We haven't done one of these in a minute. We haven't done one of these in a minute for good reason. Why? The shows are Monday through Friday, Tuesday and Thursday on the ground, but today has been a day that I think we just need to talk.
Being confident of this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. On Friday, May the 6th, I came across a headline that said that Kevin Samuels had died. To be honest, when I first read that, I thought it was bullshit. It wasn't until further scrolling through YouTube that I came across a tribute video by Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews, that it actually sank in that it was true, that I actually believed it. The way in which this man was speaking in his video, and I will say a disclaimer that I have not watched this video all the way through, but just the way he was talking in the beginning of his video, you can't fake that. This wasn't a prank. This was real. Being spoken about by someone who was close to him and who knew him, someone with whom he had close contact. Since then, several channels have put up their own videos on him, and I have personally not watched any of them. Not because I don't partake of the channels, it's just because I wanted to make this video of views that were my own. I wanted to put this up to kind of give my own viewpoints on his content and what we knew of his life in terms of what he put up on YouTube. What I do know so far is that he's already severely missed by those with whom he was close. People like O'Shea Duke Jackson, who actually was the one that called MTR to let him know what happened. It is kind of terrible when someone of this caliber dies. I think he spent a total of maybe 5 years on YouTube, and in 5 years he managed to make a great impact on the world, for good or for ill, depending on where you stand. But he managed to make an impact on the world, an impact that will not soon be forgotten. But the thing that really sickens me is how people are celebrating this man's death as though he were the second coming of Idi Amin or Papa Doc. They're celebrating his death simply because he dared to hold black people, and in the latter days, black women, accountable for our actions and our life decisions. And for that, he was reviled, he was ridiculed, he was hated, and now there are people that are celebrating him. And I don't think these people truly understand what it is that we have lost in this man.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Welcome to Life and Style by Kevin Samuels. I'm Kevin Samuels, your lifestyle coach. Today we have another fragrance review, and it's another fragrance that I consider to be a designer masterpiece. It comes to us from the house of Tom Ford, of course, and it's called Black Orchid.
Essentially, his content when he first started on YouTube was about male self-improvement in various areas. He also used to do vlogs from his car where he would talk to black men, wider audience of men in general, but he directed this towards black men because in his mind he knew that black men didn't really have a figure at whom they could look, or someone who wanted to talk specifically to them in a way that was holding us accountable. I'm going to keep using that word a lot because I don't want to use synonyms, but he would talk to us in a way that forced us to look at ourselves, see what was wrong, and take steps to fix it. But he would also talk to us in a way that was uplifting, showing us ways and telling us ways how we can improve ourselves. Something as simple as changing the way you dress. Something as simple as changing the cologne you wear. Male self-improvement. But he was also known for talking about dating and relationships, and would often talk to women, specifically to black women, in these vlogs. And then he started to upload content from his Instagram lives where he would have people call in. And this is actually how I found out about him. Another channel called Abba and Preach, they did a reaction to a video, which is probably the video that he is most known for. It is the video that essentially brought him to prominence and put him in this other sphere, put him more in the dating and relationship advice sphere. A woman called in. She wanted to talk about something that had nothing to do with the topic on which he was speaking, but he gave her the floor. Long and short of it is, he's best known for that video because in that video he called her average at best. And he did so simply because this woman had convinced herself that she deserved a high value man, a higher caliber of man than she was getting. But the kind of men she was looking for, she had no idea where to go find these men, and most importantly, she had no idea what these men wanted or were looking for in a woman. One of the things that he used to talk about was the modern woman versus the traditional woman, and he would weigh these differences as he would speak to various callers that would call in. He opened his show up a lot to women because they were kind of his primary detractors, really, but he wanted to talk more to black women. He became known for his pretty much no-nonsense, shoot from the hip, unfiltered style of content where he wouldn't mince words. He would ask questions, he would get straight to the point, and he would speak directly. He was often seen as controversial because of his traditional viewpoints and his adherence to that. He spoke primarily to black people because he wanted black people to prioritize the building of families, the acquisition of wealth, and the climbing the social ladder, instead of having us focus on the temporary things or going out and perpetuating the cycle of single parenthood. One of the things that he often would bring up is he would bring up therapy when he was talking to people. And it's sad to say, but we all know that mental health isn't a topic that black people like to talk about. We don't really talk about mental health in the black community. We just pass it off to the side. And one of the things that he wanted to bring to the forefront was how we as people are screwing ourselves up by not dealing with these issues, by not dealing with these burdens that we're holding that will allow us to move forward and rebuild our community. He, in short, would hold a lot of these women who would call in accountable. He would crack through their delusions, and worst of all, he wouldn't stroke their ego, he would attack and destroy their ego. He's also known for his ranking system, where he would ask women to rank themselves on a scale from 1 to 10, fresh-faced, out the shower. You can't use 7. And the reason why he didn't use 7 is because 7 is easy to pick. It's an easy number to pick, and by removing the easy option, you force yourself to be honest. Now, I didn't really agree with who he placed in his ranking system, because he placed Beyonce at an 8 and Kelly Rowland as a 9, And while I personally think that Kelly Rowland is more beautiful than Beyonce, Beyonce's a 6 at best to me. That's just my opinion. It's my scale. That's how I look at it. Hate me if you want, I don't care. But he would crack through these delusions where these women would call in and say that they deserved something. He would crack through the notion of deserved. Because when he would press them through questioning whether or not they knew what these men wanted, they didn't. They didn't know. They would often not know what kind of jobs these men had, where to go find them, or what it was that they wanted. What they wanted was the status. And he wanted our women to understand that, hey, it's fine to want the status, but the status comes with conditions. And that got a lot of people really, really angry. On the instances where men would call in, he would speak to them in exactly the same way. I dare say even slightly harsher. But no one batted an eyelid about that because he's talking to men. Who cares?
You don't have a big dick. You don't have a big wallet. You're a fat dude. And you got a lot of nerve thinking you should get choosing singles at 5'10" and 300 pounds, making less than $1,000 a month at 20 years old. And women should approach you. What they get, they don't even get a big dick.
One particular example was a black man, a young black man, who called in to say that black women were his enemy. He didn't like black women. He hated black women. They were his enemy. And when questioned further, it was found out that he was dating a woman who was a medical student, and she didn't respect him. And when pressed even further, it was found out that she had ambition and he did not. And so the only place he could be dominant was in the bedroom, because he wasn't dominant in any other aspects of his life. He had nothing else in other aspects of his life that would make her respect him and want to submit to him. He proclaimed that he wanted to be a husband, but he was not ready to be a husband. Much in the same way, there were a lot of women that would call in that would profess to want to be wives, and he would tell them straight up, you're not ready to be a wife. His main focus was on trying to get people to understand that in our community, we should prioritize these things. We should prioritize things like marriage. We should think about things like rebuilding our community. And communities are built around families. People really and truly wanted to stand on victimhood a lot, such as the young man that called in saying that black women were his enemy, that he hated them. But he refused to let people stand on victimhood. He refused to let people stand on the I was young and stupid excuse, by pointing out to them that they had control of their lives and could do what needed to be done. He represented something that we as black people cannot abide by, and that is he represented a mirror that will reflect back to us all the things that we don't want to talk about. Our lack of focus on mental health, our lack of focus on building families, our lack of focus on our own communities. We're willing and able to hoist the blame on others, but refuse to look inward. He himself is a product of a single family home, but he was able to rise above his circumstance to become who he was, and he wanted to pass on that this is not anomalous. This is something that we can all do, and he wanted to push and encourage us to do that. But because he wasn't using soft language, he was hated for it. Because if you have a man that is a traditional man, he's aiming to be a provider. He's aiming to be the cornerstone, the foundation upon which a house is built. A provider, a protector, the kind of man that, well, quite frankly, we need in our communities. The kind of man that is fit to be a father. he was focusing on traditional women who are fit to be mothers, wives, building families upon which our community can then be built. There is a direct correlation between the rates of incarceration and the breakdown of the nuclear family in the Black community. There's a direct correlation to that, because there are no more powerful words in the English language than when your mother looks you in the eye and tells you, wait until your father gets home. And in a family where you have a strong man as a father and a strong woman as a mother, it is impossible to raise weak children. That's all he wanted, was to rebuild the Black family so that we could rebuild the Black community. He would hold us as a community accountable for our actions. And there were those of us within our community that did not like that. I read a tweet from someone who I'm not even going to bother giving him press, where he said that Kevin Samuels profited off of exposing the toxicity of the Black community. And you're damn right he did. Because it's about time that we saw that. It makes me sick that people are celebrating his death. But to those people I say, only a man has died. His legacy will live on through the works of the people that he has inspired and through the library of content that he has put up on YouTube. To Mr. Kevin Samuels, I say, thank you for everything that you've done. Rest in power, sir.
Give me a break. Look, man, give me a break. I was born with a father who was out doing what he was doing. Papa was a Rolling Stone, you know. God bless his soul. You know, my mother did the best she could with what we had, you know. My story is like anybody else's story. Functions of poverty, you know, issues from childhood. I'm not special. I'm not special, any more special than anybody else. The difference is, you got to give yourself a break, man. Give yourself a break, give me a break, and you got to break these cycles. So many of us did not get what we needed in childhood, did not get what we needed in our formative years, did not get what we needed when we decided to go to college and relationships and this and that. And the bottom line is this: you're not following my content because you don't want something, and the thing you want is likely being the better version of yourself. You notice when I tell people you attract what you are, and you hate the things you are. It's because I've sat there and have had to do that work, that intensive work, that uncomfortable work, the work that comes along with having to be vulnerable in front of a therapist, in front of a counselor, to sit there and talk it out, to understand that you bring you to every situation that you're in, and if you don't do the work, I could drop you in the middle of the situation you say you want. I could drop a woman in a room with 100 high-value men wanting to get married in under a year, and they'll blow it. Conversely, I could drop 100 men in a room full of feminine, beautiful, inspirational women wanting to be cooperative and submissive to a man, and you'd blow it because you haven't given it, because you can't give yourself a break. How many of you guys have really decided to do the work to break these cycles?